Hello everyone, welcome back to the garage. Going to be working on the 280Z project today, so stick around. So for any of you that are new, this is my 1978 Datsun 280Z. You can see we've got it all blown apart. I picked this up, I don't know, 3 or 4 months ago. Had to completely strip the car because of rust. As you can see, we've got the floor pans all cut out. We had some good momentum last video. Got the firewall all done and got behind the seats all cut out, so we know what we got to do there. So today, that's what we're going to do. We're going to start with repairing this, which hopefully will go well after all that I learned in the last video or last couple videos working on that firewall. And once that's in, then we can put our floor pan in, which is sitting right up there and ready to go in. First thing we're going to do is, this is the seat belt pocket, I guess, where the seat belt mounts. And as you can see, there's some holes in the bottom of it. So we got to cut that out. We're just going to cut out around that bottom section there, put a quick patch in, and then we can get to work fabricating all of the panels that we need behind the seat. Now that we got our seatbelt pocket all done and the rust encapsulator is drying, we got to get started on the other pieces. So this is the piece that goes right underneath here. And I think I'm going to just cut it out, or just do this piece, and then I'll do this piece after. So we're going to try out something a little different here that I haven't done before. I'm going to try a voiceover so that we can work and I can talk and explain things at the same time. So right now I'm taking my old panel that I cut out by that seat pocket and just doing a quick basic trace outline on the new sheet metal so we can get a rough cutout for it. Now I gotta make that bend in it where it goes from the horizontal part up the vertical part. The easiest way I found is to use a couple C-clamps between the bench and a piece of tubing. And this time I use square tubing because I don't need it a perfectly rounded edge. It's somewhat rounded, and the plywood on the table will have enough give in it and roundness on the edge that it'll give me not a perfectly sharp bend. So we just clamp it down and tap it down with the 3-pound hammer, and that gives us a decent bend, and just match it up to the old one. Now I got it in here. I did forget to record doing the plug welds. I'm using the new floor pan to line everything up so that I know everything is where it needs to be. Then we just need to tack everything in place so we can move along and get the rest of this repair behind the seat done. This piece here, the sheet metal bends up to get around that corner there where the seat belt pocket goes in. So all I did is I made a quick cut on the bend line, and I was just bending it up with my hammer. Then we tack it in place and just tap it down with the hammer until it's the right shape that we want. And I had a little bit of excess here that I trimmed off. The hammer just gets it in place once you get it tacked in, and then we just weld it in place right along that seam, and it'll look nice. There we go, got that piece in place now. I'll have to finish welding up here, but I'll get that later once I get everything else in. I did forget to hit record like an idiot when I welded those pieces in. This cut right here is just a rough opening. It's gonna need to be trimmed when I put this down in. So I'll figure out where it's hitting and just trim that. That's all gonna be hidden anyway. You're literally not gonna see this, so it doesn't have to be 100% perfect, but I just gotta get it so it doesn't hit. I have my floor pan in here temporarily. This was just helping me line up and continue to help line up where my floor or the piece I'm repairing here goes. As you can see, we got some bends here. So I have it shifted forward a little bit of where it's gonna go right now. You can see it's a little ahead of the seam, just so I could work down here. And what I did is I don't know if you guys have ever seen these. These are called Cleco fasteners, and all it is basically a temporary rivet. You just use this tool and the end expands. You know, pushes in, pulls back, expands, and holds stuff in place. I had that stuck in there just to get it lined up like I said. Now, what I need to do is work on this piece here, I suppose. So we will get to work with that. So what I'm doing now is, this is the bottom layer of the floor. There's 3 layers here in this section. And this piece, when I was cutting the floor out, I didn't realize it went out so far, so I accidentally cut it off. So I'm just doing a real quick repair using the shape of the panel that's still there to bend my piece as I tack it along. Super simple, super easy, quick. And then once I get it all welded in, you'll see I will trim the edges off and I'll grind it down, and it won't look like there's even been a repair there. And as you can see, like I mentioned, I'm tacking it and bending it. That enables me to not have to get the piece perfectly shaped before I start welding it on. You could do that, but I find that it's easy to just use tacking as you go on it, especially on a piece this small.
and just bend it as you go to get it perfect. You'd want to probably get it roughly started in a shape before you start tagging, but I find this much easier than just purely getting the shape done on a piece that's this small and simple.
I think what I'm going to do for this piece is make it out of 3 pieces. You know, I got this part here. There's another layer that sits on top, covers all the way over here. I cut it right there. I think what I'm going to do, because you got bends this way, plus you'd have to fold it up around here, and I don't believe I am that good that I could make that work. What I'm going to start with is this piece that's going to go right along this lip here, where this is going to sit on. And I'll start right here-ish and go up. It's going to need to widen out, come up here, narrow back in, and tie in right here. And that will give me my shape here, and then I'll probably make this piece that'll come down like that, to keep this contour right here, and get that in, and then make this triangle piece over here on the side. And I'll just have to weld it all around here and then shape it, which, you know, as we found up here, shaping in those corners like that's not the most fun, but I think that's probably my best bet, so we'll try that.
I made a quick template to go in there because that piece is going to have some different shapes to it. So I'm just transferring this to a piece of sheet metal that I had already cut out roughly to the size that it's going to need to be. The small dash marks I have on there are going to be tentative places where this piece is going to need to be bent. Since it's rounded to meet up with the floor, I'm using this piece of tubing to just get a rough bend in the approximate shape that it needs to be. Just like the last piece, I'm going to use the floor panels that are still in the car and the new floor pan that's going in to help me shape it. I'll get this roughly shaped out and start tacking in place and making the final bends once I get it close. As you can see right here, we got it nicely shaped up. This is what it looks like from the horizontal view.
It's looking pretty good.
And then I'm going to match it up to the floor pan right here, just to make sure we have it shaped how I want. On the side to our right now, my left, you can see it wasn't quite matching up perfect, so I'm just going to make a couple quick tweaks to it, and it's going to have the shape that we want.
Look at that. I don't know as you can get a whole lot better than that. It's fitting well in there. I just got to trim back here because we're overlapping.
Now, just like our other panels, we want to put weld through primer on so that we'll lessen our chance of getting rust built up in between the panels. You're never going to get your pieces perfectly to fit when you're mocking them up, so using a pair of these vice grips and a hammer, you can get it shaped to what you want. Now this is my pattern that I made for the vertical piece going towards the back. I already transferred it to a piece of sheet metal, so we'll just cut that out and get started shaping it in place. You can see I drilled some holes already for the plug welds where they're going to go, and it fits nicely. When you're doing stuff like this, you want to make sure you either clamp the pieces together or press them together when you're tacking it, because it's very easy to have a small gap between them. And that's why I was using the hammer and vice grips and stuff to push the panels together. So now that we got that tacked in place and the plug weld's done, I know it's where it's going to go and it's not going to move now. I made a pattern for the last remaining piece. We get it cut out just like the other ones, tack it in, shape it as we go, and plug weld and tack it in place. And I'm using some vice grips again to clamp it nice and tight. This corner seam between the last panel we did and this panel, when I made it, I had them overlapping and decided to trim it after it was on there. I skipped over that part in the recording, but you can see my tacks that are in place now. I did a lot of trimming to get that to fit just perfect. That's why I left it overlapping, because I knew once I got it in place exactly where it's going to go, I could trim it and get that and not have any gaps that I had to worry about filling with weld. Once I got all the sides tacked in place, I could hammer the top down fully where it needs to go. And there was some overlap with the old panel where it meets up on that seam. That was by design. I didn't want to accidentally make it too small and have a gap there. So I am trimming as we go, hammering it down. That way I get a perfect seam right there. Then it's just a matter of tacking it in place like all the other seams, and I still like to hammer it down as we go. That way I know I've got everything matching up at the right height.
Look at this. Got all our patch panels in. Actually, it didn't go together too bad. This was a little tough to get this gap here because it was overlapping. I had to trim just like I did up here and then tap it in with a punch just because it's the only thing that could get in there. But overall, I mean, we fit pretty nice. I got to trim this off right here just because that edge is sticking out just a little bit extra. I gotta do a little bit of repairs up here where I cut it out, I cut through. So I'll grind all this down, clean it all up, fix this. We're gonna weld everything in and then stick our seatbelt pocket back in. And we'll be ready for the floor pan.
Just like I did on the firewall, I am making sure to do my best not to warp any of these panels. For anybody who didn't watch that video, what I'm doing is doing one tack in a random spot and then cooling it right off with the blowgun. And then I'm not welding right next to that one. I move across the panel, you know, down the seam a bit, around the panel. That way we don't get heat in one area and warp the panel. So we do a tack, we cool it, we move, you know, 3-4 inches away, do another tack, cool it, and work our way around, go nice and slow, and that will minimize the chances of warpage. Some warpage is still going to occur because it's thin sheet metal, but as long as you don't get massive amounts of warpage, you can fix it with the body hammers. So we'll just do that along all of our seams. Now we got to put our seat pocket back in. This one should go pretty simple because it's just a bunch of plug welds and then some seam welds on a couple edges, but there's no butt welds because this is all overlapping. I'm not worried about this warping, so I don't bother using air to cool everything off. Because this pocket warped some just from me taking it out because I had to drill, I had to cut, I had to pry up a bit. I did my best to keep it as straight as I could, but it doesn't matter what, you're still going to warp it some. It's easy enough to tack it and shape it as I go to the chassis of the car. here's what it looks like when it's all done. As you can see, we got everything all welded in, and now we just need to grind and smooth everything out. I'm not going to bore you guys with the full grinding. It took quite a while. Basically did the same thing as the firewall. I mostly use the edge of my die grinder because I can control that easy with the cutoff disc. In those inside corners, I used the edge of a grinding disc. So I took a brand new 4.5-inch grinding disc and I rounded the edges a bit on a scrap metal that I had, because the brand new disc has nice square edges and we don't want that, so that when I'm in there, I can get those inside corners as round as I can.
Check it out. We got that behind the seat all smoothed out, all welded up solid, looking very nice. Well, I'm very happy with how that turned out behind the seat. Using the floor pan itself to help shape those pieces made them fit really well. This went so much better than the firewall. So that'll about do it for this video. Next one, now that we got those all finished, we got behind the seat done, we got the firewall done, it's time to put the floor pan in. So that'll be really exciting to finally get a new panel in the car that I don't have to fabricate myself. Hopefully you stick around for that one. Let me know in the comments what you think. If you got any tips, if anything I did wrong on any of that stuff, or anything that would help me out in the future. But hopefully you come back for the next one. Thanks for watching.